Hey y'all, Big Tim here. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Old School and Bass with Big Tim. Today is a real fun episode. We get to talk about topwater lures. Anybody that loves bass fishing loves fishing topwater. It's awesome. You know, the strikes are visual. It's really exciting. It can be frustrating, sure, but wow, I can't wait till topwater season. I just love it. That being said, topwater season generally occurs. You know, maybe you can get some fish on the spawn, but from the spawn later on to the late fall. Sometimes even into the winter. You know, if you're in a deep reservoir like Lake Cumberland or Dale Hollow where the water stays warmer longer into the year, you can get on a good topwater bite. So, without further ado, my favorite topwater lure. A lot of people are already kind of know that the Whopper Popper has been a big craze. You can see this one's caught a bunch of fish. It's marked up, got some hook rash, and it's actually a little bent. Got to work on that. This is the Whopper Popper 130. It's the first one that I bought. I took it to Lake Cumberland in September, and you know it was still hot, still real hot. I didn't get up early enough to get on the water till about 11:30 or something, because I drove from the house, and so late September, hot, right around noonish. My first three strikes scared me on the Whopper Popper 130. It was like watching peacock bass videos. It was really incredible. I was amazed that I was able to catch fish that late in the day on top water in the heat of the day like that. What I was keying on was shade. You know, being that hot, you know, you need to throw shade. But the biggest fish I caught was maybe 3.5 pounds. But the way they hit it, I would have swore they would have been 6, 7, maybe 8. I mean, they really hit it with a vengeance, and that has proven to be the case a lot with this bait. They really strike it hard, and I really love throwing the Whopper Plopper. I'll throw it the 130 anytime I'm trying to catch 15-inch fish or better in deeper water. Really like it. You just cast it out and reel it back, and that tail does all the work for you. What's cool about it is it floats and it pauses. You know, or when you pause it, it floats. And when it floats, it's in the water almost straight up and down like this. So while I'm talking about it, one of the things I noticed was this was my first one that I bought. And if you're ever going to buy a Whopper Plopper, I always recommend that bone is the #1 color. Get it first. My second that I get is black. And then if I have some time or money to buy another one, I like clear for clear water. But I noticed that the black one and the clear one that I bought after this did not sound near as mean as this guy did. When you throw this out the first time and you reel it across the water, you're going to be struck by how mean it sounds. I mean, it really sounds vicious. But I noticed those other two didn't sound quite as mean as this one did. So I played around with them a little bit. I thought, let's kind of have something to do with the way they float. And sure enough, it was. I put these in a bathtub, filled up some water, and I noticed that this one floated just barely. The eyeballs were sticking out the top of the water, where those other two were floating down up to here. So they were riding a little higher in the water when they were just sitting there. So I ended up putting a little weight on the tail. Did the trick, made them mean. I mean, they are tough. They really sound great. So if you have any problems with Whopper Plopper and you don't want it to, or it's not sounding the way you think it should, put a little weight on the tail hook. Don't put too much. You still want it to float at least at eyeball level. Okay, and I realize that's not much, but make sure you do that. Do not put the weight up here on the front hook. Put it toward the back. So since I got that one, the next one I bought was the Whopper Plopper 90. And you notice a trend here in the color. You know, like I said, I like the white. And this is something I started doing, and it made a big difference. I actually won our end of the year Thursday night classic tournament on this, in one little spot. I think I weighed, well, I think I caught 9 keepers that day, and 6 of them came on this little Whopper Popper. This is a nice little finesse bait for the river. It doesn't sound near as mean as the 130. It's got a different sound to it. But what differentiates this from a buzzbait, you know, I still love a buzzbait, but this is a little different in the fact that you can pause it and let it sit there, and it'll stay right there, whereas a buzzbait will sink. So the 90s really have a place for finesse areas. A new one that came out that I haven't, I think I may have thrown it 4 or 5 times just to see what it sounds like. This is the new Whopper Popper 75. It's got the same size tail as the 130, so it does sound pretty mean, but it's just a smaller profile. So I think this one's going to be pretty exciting. I don't know if it'll be a good one on the river yet. That'll wait to be seen. But like we said, a buzzbait still has its place. You know, buzzbait is a little bit different. A lot of times I'll throw a buzzbait and a Whopper Popper. But the difference is, you know, like I said, that one will pause. This one's more solid. And obviously, you don't get hung up near as much as you will with a Whopper Popper. If there's any grass or leaves or whatever else, that Whopper Popper is going to catch it. So it's kind of infuriating because that tournament that I talked about winning, there were a lot of leaves on the water. And, you know, about every 2 casts, you were getting hung up in leaves, and, you know, the bait wouldn't work right. Doesn't happen quite as much with a buzzbait. So another thing that you can do with a buzzbait, you can put any kind of trailer on there that you want. The trend for about 4 or 5 years now is putting a soft toad, like a Zoom horny toad or something like that on here. And, you know, that is a cool way of doing it, because when you do that with a Zoom horny toad, you can actually skip a buzzbait. And that's pretty cool, where you can put a buzzbait up there and dock and reel it back. Really, really cool idea for buzzbait. So keep that in mind. But you can put a swim bait on there. It just depends on the fish's mood, you know, what you want to put on there as far as your baits go. To me, the next one we're going to talk about was my entry level. Well, the buzzbait actually was my first entry level into topwater, but as far as entry level into hard lures, this is the old-fashioned Rebel Pop R. Still got the old-fashioned hook on it and everything else. When I first got one of these, I was farm pond fishing out at my ex-father-in-law's. And like I said, I'd always used a buzzbait. And for some reason, I'd never thrown one of these. So I got one, threw it out there, and I caught like 12 fish and 15 casts. They'd never seen it before, and I was hooked. You know, there's different ways that you can fish this bait. You can cast it out and wait for the rings to dissipate about 2 or 3 feet, and then just give it a solid pop. You can work it faster, however you want. So I graduated from the Pop R, which makes more of a popping noise, to something that everybody that fishing the Ohio River probably has and was real excited about years ago. And that's the Rico. It's a little smaller. And these dudes, you can actually get them to walk the dog or pop. I think they were designed by Rick Clunn. But they're a little bit more buoyant than the Pop R, so you can work them a little quicker. And they're a lot of fun. I really like them. Now, the Rio Rico, there's a bigger one. It's probably about the same size as this Pop R. But the Rio Rico, I'm not a fan of, because I can't make it pop. And maybe I just have a defective one. But all I could ever do was get it to walk the dog in real tight, in a real tight pattern. But that's all I could ever get it to do. I couldn't get it to pop. So I'm not really a big fan of the Rio Rico. As far as poppers go, another one that was my favorite for a few years and I'll still tie one on occasionally, is a storm chug bug. It's a little bit bigger, and you can walk the dog. That's where you have it going side to side as you're reeling it in. You do that by just kind of twitching the rod, kind of like that, but you're holding it low. We'll definitely be showing you that later. This is a storm chug bug. It's got rattles in it, and you can make it pop, spit, and walk the dog. Really, really cool lure. Then you can go into the spook style lures. I gave up all my old spooks for this one bait. This is called the Paycheck. I think it was designed after the Reaction Innovations Vixen, but this is actually as a Paycheck. I think it's a Repo Man, but they have a real unique sound as they're coming through the water. Now you have to be careful. I already talked about how the fact that I use most of my top waters, I use braid. This guy right here, where the line tie comes back, the braid would slip through there. So I always keep a snap on that guy. Really, really cool lure. And here's its little buddy. I think this one's called the Late Payment. And it's got one of the little ties on it too. Another nice lure. They both, they're just different sizes. This one's like 3.5 inches and this is like 4.5. But they have a unique sound as they come through the water. So that brings me to my next new favorite, Topwater. And I love all Topwater, so I don't know how I can have a favorite. But I was just so excited when I finally got these. These are the Shower Green Evergreen Shower Blows. I just got these at the end of the season. I got this when I actually did catch a couple fish in that tournament that I talked about winning with the Whopper Popper. And in this one, I actually caught some monster, if you see it on my Facebook page, I caught some monster stripers on this guy. I actually lost it on my first cast. Hadn't even tied it on, made my first cast, and I had stripers blowing up on it right and left, and it broke off. And I was like, oh man, I can't believe I broke this sucker off. About 30 seconds later, I see it floating up. We go over and grab it, and it's got about 8 to 10 inches of braid on it. So I don't know if I had a bad place in my braid or what, but I will tell you that 2 of the 3 hooks were totally straightened out. The hooks that came on them, I thought were pretty strong and very, very sharp. But those big stripers, man, if they were fighting over it, they straightened them both out. So keep in mind when you're throwing for stripers. But this is the smaller one. This is the 90, and this is the 130. There's another one that's the 150. I don't think I have a need for it. If I was fishing Kentucky Lake on a more regular basis, I would probably buy the 150. But you notice the bone trend again. Another type of topwater and a lot of people's favorite, not particularly mine because I don't fish a lot in areas that have this type of cover. But in grass, a frog is hard to beat. I don't get the opportunity to fish many areas that have grass. We don't have a whole lot of that here in northern Kentucky. Down south, I definitely threw one. But around here, I don't throw them often. I'd love to have more opportunity to throw them because I had a couple of days where I had a real good time with them down south, Lake Eufaula, Lake Okeechobee. But I really love these. I just don't get the opportunity to throw them very often. So these are more kind of topwater, but subsurface. This is a wake bait. This is an old-fashioned redfin. It's designed to just barely stay under the water. Along with, this happens to be an Academy H2O model. See how that lip is straight up and down? That'll stay just barely under the surface. These can be really exciting lures as well. Another one of my favorite, I call it a wake bait. It'll go about 6 to 8 inches. This is a man's baby -1. Those are also really good when the fish don't want to commit to top water, but they're coming up the surface. So that's it with topwater fishing. I can't wait to do some topwater episodes to show you guys. I mean, that's going to be exciting. So until then, tune in. If you have any questions, hit me up down at the bottom. And have good fishing. Thanks a lot.